The pounding on Margaret's front door echoed through her small Scottsdale apartment like thunder. Each hit was harder than the last, more desperate, more broken. Margaret stood frozen in her living room, her heart slamming against her ribs. She knew exactly who was on the other side of that door. She had been waiting for this moment, planning for it, but nothing could have prepared her for the raw pain in his voice when he finally spoke. "Margaret," Dangju Park's voice cracked through the wood. "I know you are in there. I saw your lights. Please just open the door." She pressed her back against the wall, her legs trembling beneath her. Tears streamed down her fair brown skin, but she refused to make a sound. She could not let him know she was falling apart too. "I saw you with him tonight," Dangju continued. His voice was ragged, destroyed. "At the restaurant in Paradise Valley, I saw the way he held your hand, the way you laughed at his jokes, the way you looked at him like he was everything." Margaret squeezed her eyes shut. The image of Dangju watching her from across that restaurant flooded her mind. She had spotted him the moment he walked in. His tall frame, his sharp jawline, those dark eyes that had once looked at her with so much love now filled with confusion and agony. She had forced herself to keep smiling at Terrence, to keep pretending, even though every cell in her body screamed at her to run to Dangju and explain everything. But she could not do that. Not yet. She needed to see how far he would go. She needed to know if his love was real or if she was just another distraction in his carefully controlled world. "Do you love him?" Dangju's voice dropped to barely a whisper, but Margaret heard every word. "Is that why you disappeared? Is that why you blocked my number and vanished from my life without a single explanation? Because you found someone better?" Margaret's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a sob. She had never heard him like this. Dangju Park was known for his composure, his control. He ran a multi-billion-dollar empire spanning luxury hotels, commercial real estate, and private security firms across 3 continents. He negotiated deals with the most powerful people in the world without breaking a sweat. But right now, standing outside her door in the middle of the Arizona night, he sounded like a man who had lost everything. 3 weeks, he said. "It has been 3 weeks since you left Los Angeles. 21 days of not knowing where you were, not knowing if you were safe, not knowing what I did wrong." His fist hit the door again, but this time it was weaker, like his strength was leaving him. "I have not slept, Margaret. I have not eaten. I have done nothing but search for you and replay every single moment we shared, trying to figure out where I failed you." Margaret slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her knees pulled up to her chest, her body shaking with silent cries. She wanted to open that door so badly. She wanted to throw herself into his arms and tell him the truth, tell him about the conversation she overheard at his office, tell him about the woman who called her a distraction, tell him about the arranged marriage he never mentioned. But she also remembered his silence. When that woman accused Margaret of being nothing more than a waste of time, Dangju had said nothing to defend her. He had not denied the arranged marriage. He had not proclaimed his love. He had just stood there in silence while Margaret's heart shattered into a million pieces. That silence haunted her more than any words could. "I gave you everything," Dangju said from the other side of the door. His voice was barely holding together now. "My heart, my future, things I have never given anyone in my entire life. I told you I loved you, Margaret, and I meant it. I meant every single word." He paused. Margaret could hear him breathing heavily, could hear him struggling to maintain what little composure he had left. "If you do not love me anymore, I will accept it. If you have found happiness with someone else, I will find a way to live with it. But please, Margaret, at least tell me why. At least give me the chance to understand what happened. Because right now, I feel like I am losing my mind." Margaret bit down on her fist to keep from crying out loud. Every word he spoke was a knife to her heart, but she had to stay strong. She had to see this through. The silence stretched between them. Seconds turned into minutes. Finally, she heard something that broke her completely. A soft thud against the door. The sound of Dangju's body sliding down to the floor on the other side. And then, for the first time since she had known him, she heard Dangju Park cry. Not loud sobs, Just quiet, broken tears from a man who had never allowed himself to be vulnerable in front of anyone. Margaret pressed her hand against the door, her palm flat against the wood, imagining his back on the other side, so close yet so far away. How did they get here? 3 weeks ago, they were happy. 3 weeks ago, she believed she had found the love of her life. 3 weeks ago, Dang Ju whispered promises against her skin and told her she was his future. And then she overheard that conversation, and everything fell apart. Margaret closed her eyes and let her mind drift back to the beginning. To the first time, she saw Dangju Park and felt her entire world shift on its axis. It all started at the hospital. Now here is my question for you. If you discovered something devastating about the person you love, would you confront them directly, or would you test them first to see their true reaction? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you are already invested in Margaret and Dangju's story, hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now, let's continue. 3 months before Margaret's world fell apart, she was standing in the private wing of Cedars West Elite Medical Center in Beverly Hills, California. She had transferred to this hospital from Atlanta, Georgia, seeking a fresh start after a painful breakup. Her ex-boyfriend of 4 years had cheated on her with her former best friend. The betrayal had left her unable to trust anyone, and she decided that a change of scenery was exactly what she needed. California was nothing like Georgia. The palm trees, the endless sunshine, the way everyone seemed to be chasing some version of fame or fortune. Margaret did not fit in, and she knew it. But she was a damn good nurse, and that was all that mattered to her. Her supervisor, a stern woman named Patricia, handed her a new assignment that morning. "You are being moved to the VIP floor," Patricia said, without looking up from her clipboard. "There is a patient who specifically requested a nurse with excellent bedside manner. Her previous nurses did not last more than a few days." Margaret raised an eyebrow. What happened to them? She scared them off. The woman is sharp as a blade and twice as cutting, but she is also recovering from a cardiac procedure and needs round-the-clock monitoring. Patricia finally looked up. "I am giving you this assignment because you are the only nurse on this floor who does not take things personally. Do not make me regret it." Margaret accepted the assignment and made her way to the private wing. The moment she stepped off the elevator, she knew she was in a different world. The hallway was wide and immaculate. Fresh flowers sat in crystal vases on marble tables. The lighting was soft and warm, designed to feel more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. She found her patient's room at the end of the hall, Suite 701. She knocked twice and entered. The room was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Lowe's Angels skyline. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling. Fresh orchids filled every corner, their sweet fragrance mixing with the sterile hospital air. And in the center of it all, propped up on a hospital bed that probably cost more than Margaret's car, sat an elderly Korean woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper expression. "You must be the new one," the woman said. Her English was perfect, accented with decades of living between Seoul and America. "What is your name?" "Margaret Williams," she replied, keeping her voice calm and professional. "I will be taking care of you for the duration of your stay, Mrs. Park." The woman studied her for a long moment. Her gaze traveled from Margaret's neatly pulled-back hair to her sensible nursing shoes. Most people would have squirmed under such scrutiny. Margaret simply waited. Finally, Mrs. Park smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was a smile nonetheless. "You have spine," she said. "Good, I cannot stand nurses who cower." Margaret allowed herself a small smile in return. "I do not cower, ma'am. It is not in my nature." "We will see about that." Over the next several days, Margaret learned everything there was to know about Sunya Park. She was 78 years old, widowed for 15 years, and the matriarch of one of the most powerful Korean families in America. Her late husband had built an empire from nothing, starting with a single dry-cleaning shop in Lowe's Angels and expanding into luxury hotels, commercial real estate, and private security firms. Mrs. Park was sharp, witty, and had zero tolerance for incompetence. She complained about the hospital food. She complained about the view from her window. She complained about the other patients she could hear coughing in nearby rooms. But she never complained about Margaret. In fact, she seemed to genuinely enjoy Margaret's company. She asked questions about her life, her family, her reasons for moving to California. Margaret answered honestly, and Mrs. Park seemed to appreciate the lack of pretense. "You are not like the others," Mrs. Park said one afternoon while Margaret adjusted her IV drip. "They treat me like I am made of glass, like I might shatter if they say the wrong thing." "With all due respect, ma'am, you do not seem like the type to shatter." Mrs. Park laughed, a real laugh that lit up her entire face. "I like you, Margaret Williams. You remind me of myself when I was young." It was on Margaret's 5th day of caring for Mrs. Park that everything changed. She was checking the patient's vitals when the door to the suite opened. Margaret turned to greet whoever was entering, expecting another doctor or perhaps a family member she had not yet met. What she saw instead made her forget how to breathe. A man stood in the doorway, tall, at least 6'2", broad shoulders that tapered to a narrow waist, sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to analyze everything in a single glance. He wore a perfectly fitted navy suit that looked like it had been sewn directly onto his body. His dark hair was styled back from his face, revealing a forehead that gave him an air of intelligence and authority. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated. Power radiated from him like heat from the sun. Mrs. Park's face transformed the moment she saw him. The sharp edges softened. The calculating gaze melted into pure maternal love. "My grandson," she said, extending her hands toward him. "Finally, I was beginning to think you had forgotten about me." The man crossed the room in 3 long strides and took his grandmother's hands in his. He bent down and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I could never forget you, Halmione," he said. His voice was deep, controlled, but there was warmth there too, a tenderness that seemed at odds with his cold exterior. Mrs. Park turned to Margaret, who was still standing frozen by the medical equipment. "Margaret, this is my grandson, Dangju Park. He is the CEO of our family's company and the future of everything we have built." Dangju turned to look at Margaret. His dark eyes locked onto hers, and she felt like she was being X-rayed, like he could see past her professional exterior and straight into her soul. "Who is this?" he asked. His question was directed at his grandmother, but his eyes never left Margaret's face. "My new nurse," Mrs. Park said with obvious approval. "She is different from the others." Dangju studied Margaret for a moment too long. His gaze traveled over her face like he was memorizing every detail. Her high cheekbones, her full lips, the way her dark curly hair was pulled back into a practical bun, the smooth, fair brown complexion of her skin. "Different how?" he asked. Margaret found her voice. "I do not take things personally," she said, echoing what Patricia had told her days ago. "And I do not cower." Something flickered in Dangju's eyes. Surprise, interest, she could not tell. "Is that so?" he said. "It is." The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile but close. "We will see about that." Margaret realized he had used the exact same words his grandmother had used on her first day. Like skepticism ran in the family. Over the next several days, Dangju visited his grandmother constantly. He came in the morning before work. He came in the evening after meetings. Sometimes he came in the middle of the day just to sit with her and hold her hand. Margaret noticed things about him, small things that contradicted his cold exterior. She noticed the way he always brought his grandmother her favorite tea from a specific shop in Koreatown, even though it was 30 minutes out of his way. She noticed the way he read to her in Korean when he thought no one was watching, his voice soft and gentle. She noticed the way he asked about her comfort constantly, adjusting her pillows, checking if she was too cold or too warm. The ruthless businessman that the media portrayed seemed to evaporate whenever he was with Mrs. Park. In his place was a devoted grandson who clearly loved his grandmother more than anything in the world. But she also noticed how he watched her, how his eyes followed her movements when she was checking monitors or administering medication, how he asked questions that seemed casual but felt intentional. "Where are you from, Margaret?" "Georgia, a small town outside of Atlanta." "Why did you move to California?" "I needed a fresh start." "Is there someone waiting for you back home?" That question had caught her off guard. She looked up from her clipboard to find Dangju watching her with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "No," she said after a moment, "there is no one." Something shifted in his expression. Satisfaction, relief. Again, she could not tell. "Good," he said simply. Then he turned back to his grandmother as if the conversation had never happened. Margaret kept her answers short after that, professional. She did not trust handsome men with too much power. She had learned that lesson the hard way with her ex. But despite her best efforts, she found herself thinking about Dangju more than she should, wondering what he was doing when he was not at the hospital, wondering what he looked like when he smiled, really smiled, not just the small twitch of his lips she had seen so far. One evening, about 2 weeks into Mrs. Park's stay, Margaret stayed late to adjust the patient's medication schedule. Mrs. Park had fallen asleep, her soft breathing filling the quiet room. Margaret needed to retrieve supplies from a high cabinet across the room. She stretched up on her tiptoes, her fingers just barely brushing the edge of the shelf, but she could not quite reach. She was about to go find a step stool when she felt someone behind her, the warmth of another body, the subtle scent of sandalwood and something warmer. A hand reached past her and retrieved the supplies she needed. She turned around to find Dangju standing impossibly close. His dark eyes were fixed on her face, his expression unreadable. "You could have asked for help," he said quietly. Margaret's heart was racing, but she refused to step back, refused to show him that his proximity affected her. "I do not ask for help," she responded. "It is not in my nature." Dangju studied her for a long moment. Then, for the first time since she had met him, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his entire face. His eyes crinkled at the corners. His sharp features softened. He went from intimidating to devastatingly handsome in the span of a heartbeat. "Neither do I," he admitted. "Perhaps that is our problem." Margaret felt something shift between them, something dangerous, something that made her want to run and stay at the same time. She cleared her throat and stepped around him, putting professional distance between them. "Your grandmother needs rest," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You should let her sleep." Dangju watched her retreat but did not follow. "Good night, Margaret." The way he said her name sent shivers down her spine. "Good night, Mr. Park." She left the room without looking back, but she could feel his eyes on her the entire way. And she knew, deep in her bones, that nothing would ever be the same. Mrs. Park was discharged from the hospital on a bright Tuesday morning. Margaret helped her into the wheelchair and pushed her down to the private entrance where a sleek black car waited. Dangju was there, of course. He helped his grandmother into the vehicle with the same tenderness he had shown throughout her stay. Before the door closed, Mrs. Park reached out and grabbed Margaret's hand. "You took excellent care of me," she said. "I will not forget it." Margaret smiled warmly. "It was my pleasure, Mrs. Park. Take care of yourself." The elderly woman's eyes sparkled with something knowing. "I suspect we will see each other again, Margaret Williams." Margaret did not understand what she meant, but as the car pulled away, she caught Dangju watching her through the tinted window. His expression was intense, determined. She should have known then that this was not goodbye. 2 days later, Margaret walked into her favorite coffee shop in Santa Monica. It was a small place, tucked between a bookstore and a yoga studio. She had discovered it during her first week in California, and it had become her sanctuary. She ordered her usual oat milk latte and found a seat by the window. She was scrolling through her phone when a shadow fell over her table. What a coincidence. Margaret looked up to find Dangju standing beside her, a coffee cup in his hand and a perfectly innocent expression on his face. She raised an eyebrow. Is it? I was in the area, he said smoothly. Business meeting nearby. Margaret glanced around the quiet street. There were no office buildings, no corporate headquarters, nothing that would warrant a business meeting from the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. In Santa Monica, she asked skeptically. Your company's headquarters is in San Jose. Dangju's lips twitched. Perhaps I was in the mood for good coffee. There are coffee shops in San Jose. None that have you in them. Margaret felt her cheeks warm, but she refused to show him he had affected her. That was smooth. I have my moments. He gestured to the empty chair across from her. May I? She should have said no. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to send him away. But there was something about Dangju Park that made logic fly out the window. Fine, she said, but only because I am curious about how you found me. Dangju sat down with the grace of a man who owned every room he entered. My grandmother mentioned you frequented this area. She pays attention to details. And she shared those details with you. She may have mentioned a few things. He took a sip of his coffee. She likes you, you know. She has not stopped talking about you since she returned home. Margaret could not help but smile. I liked her too. She is a remarkable woman. She is. Dangju's expression softened when he spoke about his grandmother. It was the same tenderness she had witnessed at the hospital. She is the only family I have left. My parents passed when I was young. She raised me. Margaret felt a pang of sympathy. I am sorry. I did not know. It was a long time ago. He shrugged, but she could see the old pain lurking behind his casual demeanor. She gave up everything to raise me, her social life, her freedom. She could have remarried after my grandfather passed, but she said she had more important things to focus on. You, Margaret said softly. Me, Dangju met her eyes. She is the reason I am who I am today. Everything I have accomplished is because of her sacrifices. Margaret understood that feeling all too well. Her own mother had worked 3 jobs to put her through nursing school. The weight of that sacrifice drove her to be better every single day. I understand, she said. My mother did the same for me. Dangju tilted his head, studying her with renewed interest. Tell me about her. So Margaret did. She told him about her mother's strength after her father left when she was 7. About the nights her mother came home exhausted, but still helped her with homework. About the illness that had nearly taken her mother 5 years ago and had inspired Margaret's dedication to nursing. Dangju listened without interrupting. His attention was complete, focused entirely on her. It was intoxicating, being the center of someone's universe like that. By the time she finished, an hour had passed. Her coffee was cold. The sun had shifted across the sky, and something had changed between them. Thank you for sharing that with me, Dangju said quietly. I know it was not easy. Margaret shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I do not usually talk about my personal life with people I barely know. Then I am honored to be the exception. She wanted to tell him he was not an exception, that she would never let someone like him past her walls, but the words died on her tongue because they were not true. This stranger in an expensive suit had slipped past her defenses without even trying. Over the next 2 weeks, Dangju Park appeared everywhere in Margaret's life. He showed up at her coffee shop 3 more times, always with a convenient excuse. He sent elaborate flower arrangements to the hospital that had her coworkers gossiping for days. He arranged for her car, which had been making concerning noises for months, to be fully repaired and returned to her parking spot without a single word of explanation. That last gesture was the one that made her snap. She found him outside the hospital after her shift, leaning against his black Bentley like he did not have a care in the world. I did not ask you to fix my car, she said, marching up to him with fire in her eyes. Dangju looked at her with infuriating calmness. You needed it fixed. I fixed it. Where is the problem? The problem is you do not get to do things for me without my permission. I am not some charity case. I was saving up to get it repaired myself. I know you were, but the engine was close to failing completely. You could have broken down on the highway. You could have been hurt. His composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine concern beneath the surface. I could not allow that to happen. Margaret opened her mouth to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. He was not trying to show off his wealth or make her feel indebted. He was genuinely worried about her safety. Most people just say thank you, he added when she remained silent. I am not most people. Dangju pushed off his car and stepped toward her, close enough that she could smell his cologne again, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I am beginning to realize that, he said softly, and it makes me want to know you even more. Margaret's resolve wavered. She had been fighting this attraction since the moment she saw him in his grandmother's hospital room. But standing here, watching his carefully constructed walls crack just enough to show the man underneath, she realized she did not want to fight anymore. One dinner, she said finally. That is all I am agreeing to. Dangju's smile was brighter than the California sun. One dinner is all I need. He was wrong. One dinner turned into two. Two turned into five. Five turned into a month of evenings spent in each other's company. Dangju took her to an exclusive rooftop restaurant in Beverly Hills for their first official date. The city lights sprawled below them like scattered diamonds. The meal was incredible. Fresh seafood, wine that probably cost more than her monthly salary, attentive service that anticipated their every need. But what Margaret remembered most was the conversation. Dangju opened up about his life in ways she never expected. He told her about his strict upbringing, the pressure of being the only heir to the Park family empire, the loneliness that came with power. Everyone wants something from me, he admitted. Business partners want deals. Women want status and money. Even my friends, what few I have, keep me close for the connections. That sounds exhausting, Margaret said. It is. He reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm, gentle. But with you, I do not feel that pressure. You had no idea who I was when we met. You treated me like a regular person visiting his sick grandmother. Do you know how rare that is? Margaret squeezed his hand. I still see you as a regular person, just one who happens to have a really nice car. Dangju laughed, a real laugh that made her heart soar. From that night on, they were inseparable. He introduced her to his world piece by piece. Penthouse views of San Francisco during weekend getaways, private yacht trips along the California coast, a memorable trip to his family's mountain estate in Aspen where they stayed up all night talking by the fireplace. But Margaret's favorite moments were the quiet ones, cooking Korean food together in his Malibu beach house while he taught her words in his native language, falling asleep on his chest while watching old movies on his ridiculously large television, the way he held her hand constantly, like she might disappear if he let go. 2 months into their relationship, Dangju said the words she never expected to hear. They were standing on the balcony of his penthouse in San Jose, the city glittering below them. He had been quiet all evening, more pensive than usual. Margaret, he said, turning to face her, I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped. What is it? He took both of her hands in his. She could feel them trembling slightly. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy, significant. I have never said that to anyone, he continued. I did not think I was capable of it. My grandmother used to worry that I was too closed off, that I would never let anyone in. But then you came along and you... He paused, searching for the right words. You changed everything. Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. Dangju. You do not have to say it back. I know it is soon. I know this is a lot. But I needed you to know. Because what I feel for you is unlike anything I have ever experienced. And I want to spend the rest of my life making you feel as loved as you make me feel. Margaret reached up and cupped his face in her hands. This powerful, guarded man who controlled empires was standing before her with his heart completely exposed. I love you too, she whispered. The smile that broke across his face was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. He pulled her into his arms and held her so tightly she could barely breathe. But she did not care. She would happily suffocate in his embrace. For the first time in years, Margaret Williams believed in happiness. She believed that the universe had finally given her something good. But happiness never lasts forever. 3 weeks before Margaret found herself hiding behind her apartment door while Dangju broke down outside, she decided to surprise him at work. It was his birthday. They had plans for dinner that evening at their favorite restaurant in Beverly Hills, but Margaret wanted to do something special. She had baked his favorite cake herself, a chocolate creation that had taken her 3 attempts to get right. She packed it carefully in a box and drove to his company's headquarters in San Jose. Margaret had never been to his office before. Dangju kept his business life separate from their relationship, which she had always respected. He explained that his corporate world was cold and cutthroat, and he did not want to bring that energy into what they had together. But surely, a birthday surprise would be okay. She arrived at the sleek high-rise building in downtown San Jose and talked her way past security. The receptionist on the ground floor recognized the name Park and directed her to the private elevator that led to the executive floor. Margaret smoothed her dress in the elevator mirror. She had worn his favorite color, a deep burgundy that he said made her skin glow. Her heart raced with excitement as the numbers climbed higher. The elevator doors opened to a pristine hallway with thick carpeting and minimalist art on the walls. She asked an assistant for directions to Mr. Park's office and made her way down the corridor. As she approached the heavy oak door at the end of the hall, she heard voices. Dangju's deep voice, and a woman's voice she did not recognize. Margaret's steps slowed. She knew she should probably announce herself, but something made her pause just outside the slightly open door. The woman was speaking in Korean, her tone sharp and impatient. Then she switched to English, probably for emphasis. "You cannot keep playing this game, Dangju. Your grandmother arranged this years ago. The merger depends on this marriage. You know what is at stake." Margaret's blood turned to ice. Her hands gripped the cake box so tightly the cardboard began to bend. "Marriage." Dangju's response was measured, controlled. "I understand my obligations. I have never forgotten them." "Then why are you wasting time with this American woman? She is a distraction, nothing more. The Yoon family is becoming impatient. Their daughter is waiting for a proposal that should have come months ago." Margaret stopped breathing. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything she believed about her relationship with Dangju was crumbling in real time. There was silence from inside the office. Margaret waited, her entire body tense with desperate hope. She waited for Dangju to defend her, to deny everything, to tell this woman that Margaret was not a distraction but the love of his life. But he said nothing. The woman continued. "End it before the engagement announcement next month. The Park and Yoon merger will create the largest luxury hospitality conglomerate in Asia. You have a responsibility to your family legacy. Your grandmother is counting on you." More silence. "I will let myself out," the woman said. "I trust you will make the right decision." Margaret heard footsteps approaching the door. She scrambled backward, her vision blurring with tears. She could not be seen. She could not face this. Not now. She ducked into a nearby restroom just as the office door opened. Through the crack in the restroom door, she watched a beautiful Korean woman in an expensive suit stride down the hallway toward the elevator. Margaret stayed hidden until her legs stopped shaking. Then she slipped out of the building without ever being seen. The birthday cake ended up in a garbage can in the parking garage. She drove home on autopilot. Her mind was numb. Her heart was shattered. An arranged marriage. A merger. A woman named Yoon who was waiting for a proposal. This entire time, while Dangju was telling Margaret he loved her, he had another future already planned. She was nothing, just a distraction, just a way to pass the time until he fulfilled his family obligations. That evening, her phone rang. Dangju's name flashed on the screen. He was probably calling to confirm their dinner plans, to hear her voice, to tell her he loved her one more time before blowing out his birthday candles. Margaret stared at the phone until it stopped ringing. She could not do this. She could not sit across from him at dinner and pretend everything was fine when her entire world had just imploded. She could not let him touch her and kiss her knowing that he would eventually leave her for another woman. But she also could not simply confront him, because part of her, a small stubborn part, still hoped there was an explanation, still believed that the man who held her so tenderly could not possibly be deceiving her. She needed to know the truth, not just about the arranged marriage, but about Dangju's true feelings. Words could be lies, but actions revealed everything. A plan began to form in her mind, a painful, risky plan. If Dangju truly loved her, he would fight for her. He would lose his carefully constructed control. He would prove that she meant more to him than business deals and family legacies. But if he let her go easily, if he accepted her departure without a fight, then she would know the woman in his office was right. She was just a distraction. Margaret packed a bag that night. She would go home to Arizona. She would reconnect with her mother. And she would find a way to test the only man she had ever truly loved. Margaret's flight landed in Phoenix on a Wednesday morning. Her mother was waiting at the arrival's gate with open arms and concerned eyes. "Baby, you sounded terrible on the phone," her mother said, pulling her into a tight hug. "What happened? You were so happy last time we talked." Margaret buried her face in her mother's shoulder. "I was wrong, Mama, about everything." She told her mother the whole story during the drive to Scottsdale. The hospital, Mrs. Park, Dangju's relentless pursuit, their beautiful relationship, and then the conversation that destroyed everything. Her mother listened without judgment. When Margaret finished, she simply squeezed her daughter's hand. "So, what are you going to do about it?" "I do not know yet, but I cannot just confront him. I need to see who he really is when he thinks he is losing me." Her mother nodded slowly. "That is a dangerous game, sweetheart. You might not like what you find." "I know, but I would rather know the truth than live in a beautiful lie." For the first 3 days in Arizona, Margaret focused on healing. She cried. She ate her mother's cooking. She took long walks in the desert and tried to remember who she was before Dangju Park turned her world upside down. She blocked his number, deleted her social media accounts, turned off location services on her phone. She wanted to disappear completely, and she was very good at covering her tracks. Back in Los Angeles, Dangju was losing his mind. Margaret could imagine it, his calls going straight to voicemail, his messages remaining unread, her apartment dark and empty when his security team checked on her, the hospital giving him no information due to privacy policies. For a man who controlled everything, losing Margaret must have been torture. Good, she wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain she felt. On the 4th day, Margaret reconnected with an old friend. Terrence Mitchell had been in her graduating class at nursing school, though he had switched careers and now worked as a successful real estate developer in the Scottsdale area. They had lost touch over the years, but he had always been kind to her. She met him for coffee at a local cafe. He was tall and handsome with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. The kind of man who made you feel comfortable immediately. "Margaret Williams," he said, standing to hug her. "I could not believe it when you messaged me. How long has it been?" "Too long," she admitted. They caught up over lattes. Terrence talked about his business. Margaret talked about her nursing career without mentioning Dangju. It was nice, normal, uncomplicated. After an hour, Margaret took a deep breath. "Terrence, I need to ask you a favor, and I completely understand if you say no." He leaned forward, his expression open and curious. "What do you need?" She told him everything. The relationship with Dangju, the overheard conversation, her need to test his true feelings, her plan to make him believe she had moved on. Terrence listened carefully. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "So you want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" he said finally. "Just for show. Just enough to make him believe I have found someone else. I need to see how he reacts." Terrence studied her face. "And what happens after? What if this guy shows up and causes problems?" "Then I will know he cares enough to fight. And if he does not show up," Margaret swallowed hard, Then I will know the truth. Terence sighed. I am not going to lie to you, Margaret. Part of me has always wondered what could have happened between us back in nursing school. If I do this, there is a chance I might develop real feelings. Are you prepared for that? Margaret appreciated his honesty. I understand, and I am sorry for putting you in this position. I just do not have anyone else I can trust with this. After a long pause, Terence nodded. Okay, I will help you, but promise me one thing. What? Promise me that when this is over, you will be honest with me about where I stand. No games, no pretending, just the truth. I promise. They shook hands like business partners sealing a deal. It felt strange, but Margaret pushed aside her discomfort. She had bigger things to worry about. That evening, she created a new social media account under a slightly different version of her name. She posted a single photo. Her and Terence at an upscale restaurant in Paradise Valley, his hand resting on hers across the table. Her head thrown back in laughter at something he had said. She knew Dangju had the resources to find anything on the internet. It was only a matter of time before he saw it. She did not have to wait long. Within hours, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Who is he? Margaret's hands trembled. She did not respond. Another message came through. Margaret, please, talk to me. Silence. A third message. I do not understand what happened. I do not know what I did wrong, but please just give me a chance to explain. Margaret stared at the screen until the tears blurred her vision. Then she turned off her phone and tried to sleep. The next morning, she woke to the sound of her mother's voice in the living room. She was talking to someone, a man's voice, deep and controlled but with an edge of desperation. Margaret's blood ran cold. She crept to her bedroom door and cracked it open. Through the gap, she saw her mother standing in the living room facing a tall figure in a dark coat. Dangju Park. He had found her. Margaret's mother spotted her first. Baby, you have a visitor. Dangju turned toward the hallway where Margaret stood frozen. His appearance shocked her. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His clothes, while expensive, were wrinkled like he had been wearing them for days. This was not the polished, controlled man she knew. This was someone who had not slept, had not eaten, had not been able to function since she left. Margaret, he breathed. Her name sounded like a prayer on his lips. Her mother looked between them with knowing eyes. I think I will give you two some privacy. Margaret, I will be in my room if you need me. She retreated, leaving them alone in the living room. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched tight between them. Finally, Dangju stepped toward her. I went to your apartment. Your neighbors said you left in a hurry. The hospital said you took emergency family leave. I called everyone who might know where you were. No one had answers. Maybe I did not want to be found. The words hit him like a physical blow. Why? What did I do? Just tell me and I will fix it, whatever it takes. Margaret crossed her arms over her chest. Some things cannot be fixed. That is not true. There is nothing in this world that I would not do for you, nothing I would not sacrifice. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. But I cannot fight an enemy I do not understand. Please, Margaret, help me understand. She could see his pain, could feel it radiating off him in waves, but she remembered his silence in that office, the way he had said nothing when that woman called her a distraction. I saw the photo, he said quietly. You and that man at the restaurant, is that why you left? Did you meet someone else? Margaret did not answer. Dangju's composure cracked further. I need to know, are you with him? Is it serious? Still no answer. He moved closer. Margaret, please, I am losing my mind. I have not slept in weeks. I cannot eat. I cannot work. I cannot think about anything except finding you and understanding what went wrong. You should go home, Dangju. I am not leaving without answers. Then you will be waiting a long time. His jaw tightened. Is that how you want to play this? Fine, I will wait. I will wait as long as it takes. I will wait forever if I have to. Margaret's resolve wavered. She could see how much this was destroying him. Every instinct screamed at her to end his suffering, to tell him what she heard, to demand an explanation. But she needed more. She needed to see exactly how far he would go. She made a decision that would haunt her for days afterward. She looked him straight in the eyes and said the most painful words she had ever spoken. "I do not love you anymore." Dangju flinched like she had slapped him. "You do not mean that." "I do. Whatever we had, it is over. Please accept that and move on." "No," the word came out fierce, desperate. "I refuse to believe that. What we have is real. I know you feel it too." "What I feel is tired of pretending. Tired of being with someone who is not honest with me." His expression shifted, confusion mixing with dawning realization. "Not honest? Margaret, I have never lied to you. I have told you things I have never told another soul." "Have you? Have you told me everything?" Something flickered in his eyes. Fear. He was afraid. "What are you talking about?" he asked carefully. Margaret made a split-second decision. She was not ready to reveal what she knew. Not yet. She needed to control this confrontation. "I think you should leave," she said instead. "My mother and I need our peace." "Margaret." "Please go, Dangju. I cannot do this right now." He stared at her for a long moment. She could see the war raging inside him, the desperate need to stay and fight versus the ingrained respect for her wishes. Finally, reluctantly, he nodded. "This is not over. I will not give up on us. Not now, not ever." He walked toward the door but paused before leaving. Without turning around, he spoke. "I love you, Margaret Williams. Nothing will ever change that. And whatever you think you know, whatever is making you doubt me, I will prove to you that my heart belongs to you completely." Then he was gone. Margaret collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Her mother appeared moments later and held her while she cried. "That man loves you," her mother said softly. "I know, Mama, but love is not always enough." Over the next 2 days, Margaret moved into her own small apartment in Scottsdale. She needed space from everyone while she figured out her next steps. Dangju did not leave Arizona. She spotted his black SUV parked at various locations around town. He was watching her, waiting, trying to understand. On the 3rd day, she went on another staged date with Terrence, this time at a popular restaurant in Paradise Valley. She wore a dress she knew Dangju loved. She laughed extra loud at Terrence's jokes. She let him put his arm around her when they left. She knew Dangju was watching from across the street. She could feel his gaze burning into her back. That night, the pounding on her apartment door began. This was where the story had started. Dangju's desperate fists against wood, his broken voice pleading for answers, his composure completely shattered. "I saw you with him tonight, Margaret. I saw everything. Do you love him? Is that why you left me?" "Because you found someone better." Margaret pressed her back against the wall, tears streaming down her face. "I gave you everything, my heart, my future, things I have never given anyone in my entire life, and you just disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. Do you have any idea what these past 3 weeks have done to me?" She heard him sliding down to the floor outside her door, heard him crying softly. This powerful, untouchable man reduced to tears outside her apartment. Part of her test was complete. She had seen how far he would go. She had seen him break. But she needed more. She needed the truth about the arranged marriage. She needed to know why he had never mentioned it. Taking a deep breath, Margaret opened the door. Dangju looked up at her from the floor. His eyes were red. His face was wet. His entire body seemed to sag with exhaustion and heartbreak. "Why?" he whispered. "Just tell me why." Margaret's anger finally erupted. "Because I heard you, Dangju, at your office, 3 weeks ago, with that woman." Confusion flickered across his face. "What woman?" "The one talking about your arranged marriage, your family obligations, the Yoon merger. How I am just a distraction that you need to end." Dangju's expression shifted from confusion to horror. "You heard that conversation." "Every word. She called me a waste of time. She said you needed to end things with me before the engagement announcement next month, and you said nothing. Nothing to defend me, nothing to deny it. You just stood there in silence. Dangju scrambled to his feet. Margaret, that is not, you do not understand. That woman was sent by my grandmother. She ambushed me in my office without warning. I was so shocked that I did not know how to respond. So there was an arranged marriage. There was a proposal, years ago before I ever met you. My grandmother and the Yoon family discussed merging our companies through marriage, but I never agreed to it. It was always theoretical. A business plan, not a commitment. Then why did you not tell me about it? Dangju ran both hands through his hair. Because I was handling it. I was already in the process of terminating the negotiations when you overheard that conversation. The moment you left that building, I told that woman the truth. I told her the only woman I will ever marry is you. Margaret shook her head. How am I supposed to believe that? You kept this huge secret from me for our entire relationship. I kept it from you because I did not want you to feel like a transaction. My whole life, every relationship I have had was tainted by business. People wanting things from me because of my name. I wanted what we had to be pure, just us, just love. He pulled out his phone and began scrolling. Look at this, I have proof. He handed her the phone. She saw a series of messages between Dangju and his grandmother. Heated arguments about the Yoon merger. Legal documents showing the cancellation of marriage negotiations. Statements from his business partners confirming that the deal had been restructured. All dated from 2 months ago, before he even told Margaret he loved her. I chose you, Dangju said, his voice raw with emotion. I chose you over my family's expectations, over billions of dollars, over everything I was raised to prioritize, and you left without even asking me for the truth. Margaret's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, overwhelmed by everything she was seeing and hearing. Why did you not tell me? She asked again, but this time her voice was softer, less angry. Because I was afraid. He knelt beside her chair, looking up at her with complete vulnerability. I was afraid that if you knew about the family pressure, you would think you were not enough, that you would always feel like you were competing with my obligations. I wanted to shield you from that darkness. Tears rolled down Margaret's cheeks. I almost destroyed everything because I did not trust you enough to ask. Dangju took her hands in his. We both made mistakes. I should have been more transparent. You should have confronted me instead of running, but none of that matters now. What matters is what we do next. What do we do next? He pressed his forehead against her joined hands. We start over. No more secrets. No more tests. Just complete honesty between us. Can you do that? Margaret looked down at the man kneeling before her. The man who had flown across states, who had watched her from the shadows, who had broken down at her door, who had just laid bare every secret he had been carrying. Yes, she whispered, I can do that. Dangju looked up, hope flooding his exhausted features. Does this mean you will give us another chance? Margaret reached down and cupped his face in her hands. This means I love you, Dangju Park. Even when I was trying to convince myself otherwise, I never stopped loving you. He surged up and pulled her into his arms. He held her so tightly she could barely breathe, but she did not care. She had missed this. She had missed him. Never leave me again, he murmured against her hair. Promise me, no matter what happens, we talk to each other, we fight for each other, we never run. I promise. They stayed wrapped in each other's arms for hours. Two broken people slowly putting each other back together. Margaret woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through her curtains and a warm body beside her. Dangju was still asleep, his features peaceful in a way she had never seen before. The stress lines had smoothed. The tension in his jaw had released. He looked almost young. She watched him sleep for several minutes before carefully extracting herself from the bed. She needed coffee and time to process everything that had happened. As she stood in her small kitchen waiting for the coffee to brew, her phone buzzed. A text from Terrence. Saw the news. The Korean billionaire who has been searching for you was spotted at your apartment building. Are you okay? Do you need help? Margaret sighed. She owed Terrence an explanation and an apology. She texted back, I am okay. He found me, we talked. I will explain everything soon. Terrence's response came quickly. So the test worked. He fought for you. Yes, he fought for me. There was a long pause before his next message. I am happy for you, Margaret, truly, but I need some space to process this. I hope you understand. I understand, and I am sorry for putting you in this position. You deserved better. We both did. Take care of yourself. Margaret set down her phone and leaned against the counter. She had used Terrence, even if her intentions were ultimately about seeking truth. She would have to live with that guilt. Warm arms wrapped around her from behind. Dangju's chin rested on her shoulder. Good morning, he murmured. Good morning. Did you sleep okay? Best sleep I have had in 3 weeks. He pressed a kiss to her neck. Who were you texting? Terrence, the man from the photos. Dangju tensed slightly. Ah. It was not real, Dangju. I asked him to help me make you jealous, to test whether you would fight for me or let me go. He turned her around to face him. His expression was unreadable. You staged all of that, the restaurant, the hand-holding, the foe. Yes, I am not proud of it, but I needed to know the truth about how you felt. Dangju was quiet for a long moment. Then he exhaled heavily. Part of me wants to be angry. You manipulated me, made me watch you with another man while my heart was breaking. I know, I am sorry. But another part of me understands. You heard something devastating and did not know what to believe. You tested me the only way you knew how. He cupped her face in his hands. And I clearly passed, because I am standing in your kitchen right now instead of halfway around the world trying to forget you. Margaret smiled despite herself. So you forgive me. I forgive you, but no more games, no more tests. If something concerns you, we talk about it directly. Deal. Deal. He kissed her softly. It felt like a fresh start. Their peaceful morning was interrupted by Dangju's phone ringing. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. It is my grandmother's nurse. I need to take this. He stepped away to answer the call. Margaret watched his body language change from relaxed to tense within seconds. His voice became sharp, urgent. When? How bad? I am on my way. He hung up and turned to Margaret, his face pale. It is my grandmother. She collapsed this morning. They have taken her to the hospital. Margaret's heart dropped. Oh no, Dangju, I am so sorry. I need to get back to Lowe's Angels immediately. I am coming with you. He hesitated. Margaret, my grandmother blames you for pulling me away from my family duties. She orchestrated that meeting with the Yoon representative because she was trying to push me back toward the merger. She may not welcome you. Margaret grabbed his hands. Then we face that together. I am done running, and I am done letting other people's opinions dictate our relationship. Dangju's eyes filled with emotion. You would do that, face my grandmother's disapproval for me. I would do anything for you. They packed quickly and drove to the Phoenix airport. Dangju's private jet was already being prepped for takeoff. During the flight, Margaret held his hand and tried to keep him calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Mrs. Park was the only family he had left. The thought of losing her was clearly tearing him apart. She is strong, Margaret said softly. Whatever happened, she will fight through it. I should have been there. Instead, I was in Arizona, chasing you. If something happens to her while I was gone. Hey, look at me. Margaret waited until his eyes met hers. Do not go down that path. Your grandmother would not want you to blame yourself. She would want you to be there for her now. That is what matters. Dangju nodded slowly. You are right. You are always right. Remember that for future reference. A small smile broke through his worry. I will. They landed in Lowe's Angels and drove straight to Cedar's West Elite Medical Center. The same hospital where Margaret had first met Dangju. The same hospital where their story began. Mrs. Park was in the cardiac intensive care unit. The doctors explained that stress had triggered a minor heart episode. She was stable but weak and needed to remain under observation. Dangju entered the room first. Margaret waited outside, giving them privacy. Through the window, she watched him take his grandmother's hand, watched the elderly woman's eyes flutter open. watched something pass between them, words she could not hear, emotions she could only imagine. After several minutes, Dang-ju emerged. His eyes were red, but his expression was determined. "She wants to see you." Margaret's stomach tightened. "Are you sure?" "She asked for you specifically." Taking a deep breath, Margaret entered the room alone. Mrs. Park looked smaller somehow, frailer. The sharp woman who had intimidated nurses and commanded rooms was reduced to a tired grandmother in a hospital bed. But her eyes were still sharp. They fixed on Margaret with an intensity that made her want to flee. "Sit down," Mrs. Park commanded. Margaret sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Mrs. Park studied her like she was a puzzle to be solved. "My grandson loves you," she said finally. "I have never seen him like this, not with anyone." "I love him too, Mrs. Park." "So I hear." She paused. "I arranged that meeting with the Yoon family because I was testing him. I needed to see if he had the strength to fight for what he wanted instead of simply accepting what was given to him." Margaret frowned. "That was a test." "Our family has been destroyed by weak men who chose duty over love. My husband was different. He fought for me against his family's wishes. But my son, Dang-ju's father, was not as strong. He married for obligation. He was miserable until the day he died." Mrs. Park's voice grew heavy with old grief. "I did not want that for my grandson." "So you pushed him toward an arranged marriage to see if he would resist." "I pushed him to see if he would break. And he did. He restructured an entire multi-billion-dollar merger rather than lose you. He defied me, his only living family, because he loved you more than he feared my disapproval." Margaret did not know what to say. Mrs. Park extended a frail hand. "You came back, even when you thought I was your enemy. That takes courage." Margaret took her hand. It was cold and thin, but the grip was surprisingly strong. "I love your grandson," Margaret said. "I did not fall for his money or his power. I fell for the man who reads to you in Korean and brings you tea from that shop you love. The man who keeps your photo on his desk. The man who would drop everything to be by your side when you needed him." Mrs. Park's eyes softened. For the first time, Margaret saw approval instead of suspicion. "My grandson made a good choice," she said quietly. "Welcome to our family, Margaret Williams." Mrs. Park was released from the hospital after a week of observation and rest. She was instructed to avoid stress, maintain a heart-healthy diet, and take things slowly. Dang-ju hired a full-time medical team to monitor her at the family estate in Napa Valley. He refused to take any chances with her health. Margaret returned to work at Cedars West, but everything felt different now. Her coworkers looked at her with new curiosity. Rumors about her relationship with the Park family had spread through the hospital like wildfire. She did not care. For the first time in years, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Her relationship with Dang-ju deepened in ways she had not expected. They talked about everything now: his business pressures, her family concerns, their hopes for the future. The walls between them had completely crumbled. But one complication remained unresolved. Terrence. He had been distant since their last text exchange. Margaret understood he needed space, but she also felt guilty about how she had used him. She reached out one afternoon, asking if they could meet for coffee. He agreed, and they met at a quiet cafe in Pasadena. Terrence looked tired. There was a heaviness in his eyes that had not been there before. "Thank you for meeting me," Margaret said. "I wanted to apologize in person." "For what specifically?" His tone was not hostile, just flat. "For using you. For dragging you into my mess without considering your feelings. For making you pretend to be something you were not." Terrence stared at his coffee cup. "Did it work? Did your billionaire boyfriend prove his love?" "He did. We are back together, and I know that is probably not what you want to hear." He laughed humorlessly. "You are right, it is not, but it is what I expected." He finally looked up at her. "I am not going to pretend I am okay with this, Margaret. I really started to hope that maybe, when this was all over, you would see that I could be good for you, that we could have something real." "I am sorry. I should never have put you in that position." No, you should not have, but I agreed to help you, so I cannot put all the blame on you, he sighed. I just need time, away from you, away from all of this. I understand. He stood up to leave, then paused. For what it is worth, I hope he treats you right. I hope he is everything you deserve. Thank you, Terence. He walked out of the cafe without looking back. Margaret watched him go, carrying the weight of her choices with her. That evening, she told Dangju about the conversation. Do you feel guilty? He asked. Terribly. I used him as a pawn in a game I was playing with you. He did not deserve that. Dangju pulled her close. We all make mistakes when we are scared. What matters is that you owned up to it. You apologized. You cannot control how he responds. I know. It just hurts knowing I caused someone pain. That is because you are a good person, Margaret. One of the best I have ever known. She rested her head against his chest. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that question every single day. The months that followed were the happiest of Margaret's life. She and Dangju settled into a rhythm that felt natural. Weekdays were busy with work and responsibilities, but weekends belonged to them. They explored California together. They visited her mother in Arizona. They spent quiet evenings at his Malibu beach house, cooking dinner and watching the sunset. Mrs. Park's health improved steadily. She and Margaret developed an unexpected friendship, bonding over their shared love of Dangju and their similar stubborn personalities. You are good for my grandson, Mrs. Park told her one afternoon during a visit to the Napa estate. He laughs more now, worries less. He is becoming the man I always knew he could be. He is good for me too, Margaret replied. Better than I ever thought possible. On their 1-year anniversary, Dangju flew Margaret to San Francisco for a surprise dinner at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. But when they arrived, the dining room was empty. I may have rented out the entire restaurant for the evening, Dangju said with a smile. Margaret shook her head in disbelief. You are ridiculous. Only for you. They ate a beautiful meal and reminisced about their journey together. The hospital, the pursuits, the misunderstanding, the breakdown at her door, the reconciliation. It has been quite a year, Margaret said, sipping champagne. The best year of my life. After dinner, Dangju took her hand and led her to the restaurant's rooftop terrace. The San Francisco skyline stretched before them, glittering in the night. Margaret, he said, turning to face her. When I met you, I thought I knew exactly what my life would look like. Business deals, family obligations, a comfortable emptiness that I had accepted as normal. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Margaret's heart stopped. You changed everything, he continued. You showed me what it means to truly love someone, to fight for someone, to choose someone over everything else in the world. He opened the box. Inside was a stunning diamond ring that caught the city lights and scattered them like stars. I have made so many mistakes. I kept secrets when I should have been honest. I let my fears almost destroy what we had. But I promise you this, Margaret Williams. For the rest of my life, I will choose you, every single day, in every possible way. He got down on one knee. Will you marry me? Margaret's vision blurred with tears. She looked down at this man who had pursued her relentlessly, broken down at her door, fought for her against his own family, and loved her with everything he had. Yes, she whispered, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and swept her into his arms. They kissed on that rooftop, surrounded by city lights and endless possibility. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. I love you, he said. I love you too. And for the first time in either of their lives, they both believed in forever. 6 months later, the Park family estate in Napa Valley was transformed. White tents dotted the sprawling vineyard. Thousands of flowers cascaded from every surface. Strings of lights crisscrossed above the ceremony space, ready to illuminate the evening celebration. Margaret stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant. a flowing white gown that complemented her fair brown skin and dark curly hair perfectly. Her makeup was minimal, letting her natural beauty shine through. Her mother stood behind her, tears already streaming down her face. "My beautiful girl," she whispered. "Your father would be so proud if he could see you today." Margaret turned and hugged her mother tightly. "You are the reason I am who I am, Mama. Everything good in me comes from you." "Hush now. You will make me ruin my makeup before we even get started." They laughed and cried together, cherishing these final moments before everything changed. A knock at the door announced it was time. Margaret took a deep breath, squeezed her mother's hand, and stepped out to begin the rest of her life. The ceremony space was filled with their closest friends and family. Margaret's co-workers from the hospital, Dangju's business associates who had become genuine friends over the years. Mrs. Park sat in the front row, elegant in a traditional Korean hanbok, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. And at the end of the aisle, waiting for her with tears already streaming down his face, stood Dangju. He was wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. His hair was styled back from his face. He looked every bit the powerful businessman she had first met in his grandmother's hospital room. But his eyes were soft, vulnerable, completely fixed on her as she walked toward him. Margaret's mother walked her down the aisle. When they reached Dangju, her mother placed Margaret's hand in his and stepped back. "Take care of my daughter," she said to him. "With my life," he promised. The ceremony was a beautiful blend of Korean tradition and American celebration. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Margaret spoke first. "Dangju, when I met you, I was closed off, guarded. I had convinced myself that love was something that only led to pain, but you pursued me anyway. You broke through every wall I put up. You showed me that real love is not just a feeling. It is a choice, an action, a commitment to show up for someone every single day, even when it is hard." She paused to wipe away tears. "I remember the night you broke down at my door. The night I saw the most powerful man I knew reduced to tears because he could not bear to lose me. That was the moment I knew without a doubt that what we had was real, because love is not always graceful or pretty. Sometimes love is messy and desperate and loud. And I want that kind of love forever. I choose you, Dangju Park, today and every day for the rest of my life." Dangju was openly crying now. He took a moment to compose himself before speaking. "Margaret, I spent my entire life building walls, protecting myself from vulnerability, convincing myself that emotions were weaknesses to be suppressed. And then you walked into my grandmother's hospital room and looked at me like I was just a regular person, not a CEO, not an heir, not a name, just a man visiting his sick grandmother." He smiled through his tears. "You climbed over every wall I built without asking permission. You challenged me, frustrated me, made me feel things I did not think I was capable of feeling. And when I thought I had lost you, I realized that nothing else in my life mattered. Not the money, not the business, not the legacy, just you." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to always choose you over everything else. I promise to be honest with you, even when it is hard. I promise to never let a single day go by without telling you how much I love you. Because you are my heart, Margaret Williams, and I am going to spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you." By the time they exchanged rings, there was not a dry eye in the audience. The officiant smiled at them. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Dangju pulled Margaret into his arms and kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart soar. The audience erupted in cheers and applause. They were married. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and joy. Margaret caught glimpses of happiness everywhere she looked. Her mother dancing with Dangju's business partner. Mrs. Park actually smiling as she watched her grandson spin his bride around the dance floor. Old friends reconnecting and new friendships being formed. Later that evening, Margaret found a quiet moment to check her phone. There was a message from an unexpected sender. "Terrence. Congratulations, Margaret. I saw the announcement. I hope you are as happy as you deserve to be. I have met someone new, and I finally understand what you meant about finding the one. No hard feelings. Be well." Margaret smiled and sent back a simple response. "Thank you, Terence. I am so happy for you. You deserve every good thing." She tucked her phone away and returned to the celebration. As the night wound down, Dangju pulled her onto the dance floor for one final slow dance. The song was soft and romantic. Their bodies swayed together perfectly, like they had been doing this for a lifetime. "Are you happy, Mrs. Park?" Dangju asked softly. Margaret rested her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady, strong, hers. "Happier than I ever thought possible." "Good, because this is only the beginning." 1 year after their wedding, Margaret and Dangju sat in the living room of their new home in Palo Alto. The house was beautiful but not ostentatious. 4 bedrooms, a spacious backyard, a home office for Dangju and a craft room for Margaret. A place to build a life and maybe, someday, raise a family. Margaret was reviewing plans for the community health clinic she was opening with funding from the Park Family Foundation. It had been her dream to provide quality health care to underserved communities, and Dangju had made that dream possible. He was on a video call with his team in San Jose, discussing quarterly reports and expansion plans. But his eyes kept drifting toward her, a smile playing on his lips. "Are you even listening to me?" his CFO asked through the screen. "I always listen to you, Michael. Continue." Margaret caught his wandering gaze and laughed silently. He winked at her and returned his attention to the call. When the meeting ended, Dangju closed his laptop and walked over to where she sat. "What?" he asked, seeing her amused expression. "Nothing, just grateful." He sat beside her and pulled her into his arms. "Me too." Outside their window, the California sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Their future stretched before them, filled with possibility and promise. Margaret thought about everything they had been through, the misunderstandings, the fear, the jealousy game she had played. The night he broke down at her door, all of it had led them here. To this moment, to this life, to each other. "No regrets?" Dangju asked, as if reading her thoughts. "Not a single one." He kissed her forehead. "Neither do I." They had won, not because everything was perfect, not because the path had been easy, but because when it mattered most, they had fought for each other. They had chosen each other. They had refused to let fear or misunderstanding destroy what they had built. And in the end, that was what love really meant. Showing up, fighting, choosing, every single day. Margaret Williams Park closed her eyes and smiled. This was her happily ever after. And it was just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, please drop a comment telling me your favorite part. Was it the breakdown at the door? The grandmother's secret test? The wedding vows? Let me know below. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one.